How do you assess the significance of Trump cutting off direct contact with Netanyahu?
First, let me stress that cutting the direct contact between Trump and Netanyahu can be a conspiracy against the Palestinians, meaning that Trump, who came to the White House and demanded Netanyahu through his envoy to stop the war because he was not going to be inaugurated. He wasn't going to assume office before the end of the war, and now he's not even fighting for an entry of humanitarian aid. I don't think it's an essential disagreement between the U.S. administration and the Netanyahu administration, but what Israel is doing is actually the desire of Trump, unfortunately. And the disagreement or the division is only for image, because the international community would condemn Israel and the US, and we have seen the Europeans condemning Israel, and the US did not, because this is a division between Trump and Netanyahu. But is this disagreement or division essential or real? I think it's only for appearances, because if there was a real disagreement between the two administrations, Netanyahu would have fallen, and the government would have fallen, and no one can actually go against the US administration. But if really Trump wanted to take over Gaza, and he talked about the free Gaza during his Gulf visit, and I think with the conspiracy theories, there is a real conspiracy between Trump and Netanyahu over the Gaza Strip. Trump wants Gaza to himself and to relocate its population. He wants to buy it, and he wants to turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East. The displacement scheme is still standing, but he wants to save face for the United States, and he doesn't want it to be a partner of what's happening in Gaza. But the Biden administration was a partner to the general scheme, and let's be clear that the United States administration does not want to take the fallout of what Netanyahu is doing in the Middle East, and he wants to have this fake disagreement, but essentially there is no real disagreement. And supporting him so far so that he wouldn't fall is still there. If the United States wants Netanyahu gone, he would be gone the following day. And if the US administration sees that Netanyahu is a threat to its interest in the Middle East, the United States would get rid of him by any means possible. But what is happening now, that when we address the United States and the Gulf states who had a lot of deals with the United States administration, they would say that there is a disagreement or division between Trump and Netanyahu, and this is the excuse of the US to actually carry out their aspirations for the Gaza Strip. And let's say that when the United Nations talked about and that in the next 48 hours there will be there are around 14,000 Palestinians will be starved to death. Britain is taking moves along with different European states and Arab states, and the foreign ministers of Egypt, Jordan, and France in a meeting regarding the situation and the ceasefire and the entry of humanitarian aid, and the European British momentum in this regard is bothering the US and embarrassing them. And with this picture, I don't think that the disagreement is real between Trump and Netanyahu. Last point is the division or the disagreement will be only regarding the US interests in the Middle East or the Israeli ones. Benjamin wants Israel first, then the United States, and he said that very frankly when he visited the US Congress, and he said that he's the protector of the US interests in the Middle East, and he's the one to defend it. And Trump wants, of course, the U.S. interests first and Israel comes later. And this is the disagreement. Is it really essential disagreement? I don't think so. But what is happening is a pre-scheme between the two administration, and Israel would do whatever it desires, and we will be outraged. And I reiterate what Trump said, reshed the light. That if Trump wants the war to stop, as what happened before his inauguration, if he wants to stop the war, he will. If he wants to enter the humanitarian aid, he will. And if he wants to remove Netanyahu from his office, he will. And this is what we have seen before with previous U.S. administration. But there is a real crisis with the current U.S. administration, that it wants to relocate the Palestinian population now to Syria and Libya, and this is what is being circulated in the Western media, by the way.
Let me just break in a second there, because I want to bring in Mr. Muharrem. From your perspective, you're in New York right now. What is the perception of Benjamin Netanyahu in the United States?
Well, I think both sides, Benjamin Netanyahu from his angle view and Trump from his angle view as well, usually they consider or they describe the relation between America and Israel is not shakable, is not breakable, and sometimes they go extremely and they can say Israel is the star number 51 on the American flag. So consider that as a historical. We used to hear all this kind of, statement. But what happened, I think there is a kind of conflict of interest between both. The Israeli prime minister, he doesn't want to stop the war because the second day, if the war is over, he will go to jail. He has a lot of things to be faced. But from the other side, President Trump, as American leader, since he came to the White House for the second period, he promised his citizens and the world that he is capable to stop the war in Gaza, and he stopped the war between Russia and in Europe, between Ukraine and Russia. For the last 4 months almost, it seems like this is kind of hope, kind of difficulty. He is working hard in both sides. I think after his last visit to the Gulf states, he has a lot of responsibility to pay back to the Gulf countries and the Arab countries. Especially the big effort was done by Qatar and Egypt in terms of to break down the solution. I think President Trump, as far as he is dreaming that he can achieve a kind of peace to allow him to be a kind of receiving Nobel Prize sometime in the future, he has to work hard again to convince the Prime Minister of Israel. I think in some areas he was not able to do that because for the last few days, the reaction of the Israeli Prime Minister is absolutely seems like he doesn't care about the situation in the area. And he doesn't care also much about the reflection of America and Trump administration. I think something has to happen very soon to show that the American administration is capable to give a positive impact and the kind of stress on the agenda of Prime Minister of Israel to do something different. Otherwise, we can see the European countries are doing something actually is too different from the American reaction. Hope that something will happen very soon in the region.